wanted to talk about relationships. Relationships have always been pretty hard for me. I definitely feel like I need a lot of personal space.
Yes.
And then also I feel like I've always felt super misunderstood and like a misfit. And I almost feel like I create that in my relationships because I'm kind of like comfortable not being comfortable. I'm comfortable being the misfit. So I don't know if I'm just like bad at choosing people or bad at like being myself all the way in a relationship because I felt so broken. But I wanted to talk to you guys about how you think being on the spectrum has been like a part of your journey in relationships. Were you in a relationship when you got diagnosed?
No. So I had to come out to my partner. I'm queer. And
Same, by the way.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So I told her first that, I was diagnosed as ADHD and about me having PTSD, and she didn't handle it so well. But when I told her, I'm on the spectrum, it was maybe a year later because I didn't know how she was gonna perceive it.
Was it easier to come out as queer or as Aspie?
I say queer.
That was easier.
That was easier. And it, most people would be like, I don't understand how that would be easier.
Yeah.
But I feel like now it's like equality, it's being pushed more to be yourself as far as being LGBT. And
Yeah, there
I
are
feel like
pride
that's way
parades.
easier. Yeah, it's pride parades. We have all of that. So I felt like that was easier than saying I'm Aspie, I'm on the spectrum, I'm neurodivergent, and people just like, what? But it's been a lot better for me, and I just am trying to come into just being myself and being open to be myself and trying to overall understand how to love myself because that's really hard for, us to do.
You can tell when people think, when they change the way that they think about you. Especially if you're
a
on
demeanor switch that you can almost like feel.
Yeah, like if you're on a date or something, maybe they're like,
Okay, so tell me about dating. What do you do? Do you tell people? Do you tell people before? Do you put it in your profile? Do you like?
Well, I don't put it in my profile, but if it comes up, I mention it like it's a cool thing about me. You know what I mean? Because I found that like
Alex,
I
you're
found
my
that when you
favorite.
like worry that it's gonna be like a thing, people pick up on that and see that you're like insecure about it. But what I also found is that when I moved to the West Coast, like people are way more accepting. People here are more like, especially in LA, they're like, oh, that's so cool.
Like that's the thing that's different about you.
A weird struggle that I find is that like I am so picky with people and I don't like a lot of people.
Yeah,
and
same.
so a lot of my issue was like it was finding somebody that I even wanted to be with. Like I've never had an actual boyfriend or girlfriend before, but I'm honestly at this point where I realize that that's not what I want anyways. In the typical structure of it, like I've just found somebody who it's like we've crafted our own thing. And I think that's so
love that.
important. Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that's part of being like neurodiverse and part of the value we bring being non-neurotypical is we can see relationships in different ways. So I have the weirdest relationship.
Me too, yeah.
When I had a 2-year-old, I hired a nanny, and me and the nanny raise our 2 kids. And we're a family, but we're non-romantic domestic partners.
Oh, cool.
And then we both date. And so we'll bring people home.
cool.
And then my non-romantic domestic partner will like cook for the person I'm dating for. And it's not really polyamory because
Yeah.
I'm not in romantic relationships, but my family is me and Mila and our 2 kids. We have 4 different last names, but we created a new last name together, which is the Rock and Rolls. So the 4 of us are the rock and roll family, and then all 4 of us were single at the same time. And our kids are 12 and 13, so we were having competitions about who could date first. But for all 4 of us, the hardest thing about dating is like you have to explain our family, which like makes no sense to anyone, but
it does make
sense to
sense.
me.
works, right?
It
Like,
works, yeah.
To me, it makes more sense because it's like, okay, that's what makes sense to them. They're not just going in the mold that is set out for them because that's what they feel like they should do. It makes way more sense when people customize things to fit them than just forcing
Exactly.
something that might not work for
And I
you.
think
Exactly.
most people do force it.
Yeah.
Because, neurotypical people go with what's expected. Whereas I think that's why you see a lot of people on the spectrums, identifying as non-binary and asexual and things of that nature because, there's probably a lot of neurotypical people that would identify that way, but that's just not part of what their view of
There's
society is. They just don't analyze things and don't even realize that they are those things.
Would you say, when we're talking about how all of us are like, I don't really like people, is it that you're looking for other people who are on the spectrum? Or what do you think it is about people that are neurotypical that might be harder to be friends with?
I find a lot of people boring, you know, and I think all of my closest friends have somebody autistic in their family. So they're used to being around somebody, and in that makes them like a lot more understanding, and I didn't realize that until recently.
So what do you think you look for, Mia, in friends or in your girlfriend that makes it work?
She's like a very understanding person, and also she really doesn't like conflict, so it makes it easier for her to understand me. And you know, I've told her to try to, you know, research, maybe watch videos, because it's not always easy for her to just take it from me, and just like, you know, sometimes you have to get the understanding from other people.
A lot of my friends have been different in various ways and were more accepting. For the most part, a lot of people who are either gay or different in other ways, maybe they have a different disability, have been a lot more accepting of me, especially when I was younger and I was more obviously different, you know.
But relationships, I think, can even be, like, I've had a lot of strong friendships. Even growing up, I would, like, cling on to one person. And when I was a kid, it was unhealthy. I would copy that person. I would want to become them. But now it's a lot healthier, and I'm much more aware. With being on the spectrum, I would blame everything going wrong in that relationship on me. And it took me until I got diagnosed to realize that, yeah, I'm 50% of the problem, but they're also 50% of the problem. Does that make sense?
You just thought, I'm the fucked up one. Right.
They're perfect, and I am messing up everything.
Yeah,
I
that's been
definitely had
me,
that.
like my whole relationship too. Like a lot of times I feel misunderstood by her. Like she doesn't get me as a person and things I do. She's just like, why are you doing that? And I'm just like, you know, because she's mostly dated people that were neurotypical like her. So she's not used to like my different quirks and just different things. Or if my voice elevates, she takes that as like I'm trying to be like argumentative.
Oh yeah,
and
do people accuse you of
like,
yelling at
different
them?
things,
Like,
yeah.
why are you yelling at me?
Yeah, she
not.
says that all the time.
Yeah.
You're
Read
yelling.
into it.
Sometimes my voice just goes in different ways that I don't
Yeah.
mean for it to go, and I sound much more aggressive and accusatory than I mean to towards people. When I'm just trying to be like, so what are you doing here? But I'm like, so what are you doing here?
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm just genuinely curious. Like,
Yeah, and she's always like, you're yelling, and I'm like, I'm not yelling.
When I talk and I get passionate about it, I personally have found that the longer relationships I've been in have all been people on the spectrum. Just out of, you know, it just seemed to have worked out that way. I have no sort of, I don't even seek out people on the spectrum. When it's someone right, it usually is clicked for me, like pretty quickly. You know,
So
like,
what do you think, what are the differences of dating somebody neurotypical versus non-neurotypical?
well, that's a hard thing to say. I think that there's this level of like, you think that necessarily, oh yeah, they're on the spectrum, it's going to work out, but like they could have just as many differences with you. Or,
But is there like a comfort?
yeah, there's this level of
being
like
able
just
to-
sort of this understanding, and you just sort of chilling out, and you're not trying to impress in a way, sort of. I mean, you're still trying to impress, right?
Right.
Because if you like them, but like it's not that same level of like having to sort of speak a different language and translating for them when you say something, and they sort of appreciate your special interest.
A lot of times I feel like the education committee in my relationship.
Yeah.
And you've talked about that with your girlfriend of how like she's done a bunch of reading, or you've recommended that she does a bunch of reading.
I do.
But I think for people that I've been in relationship with, I always want them to do that on their own.
yeah.
Because if I just tell you how to react, it's completely different than if you do your own research.
Right, yeah. And also just taking that initiative really shows that somebody cares.
Yeah.